Okay, so let's go ahead and set up our project here for the exercise. And also one last thing before we move on. I will also be updating the Project 3 assignment sheet. Hopefully I'll be able to email it to everybody by the end of class, so you can go by that version of the Project 3 assignment sheet, and then I will update it on Blackboard. So everybody will at least get it directly emailed. All right, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and launch Premiere. Okay. All right, here we go. New project, use today's date, exercise 0613. Save it in the proper location. Let's drop that down. Exercise. Okay. And create. Okay. So we're in our workspace, and I'm going to adjust my brightness here a little bit. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and import. Actually, go ahead and import both folders. Just double click in project panel, and I've got mine in different places, so go ahead and grab the ones you have and bring them in. There it is. That's the Watanabe one. Hang on, let me double check something. Let me just delete that. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that Watanabe should have 4 subfolders. The P3 Watanabe exercise, it has a folder with civilization. Another folder says nature still's correct. 1920 by 1080. It's got a bunch of pictures, pretty pictures. It's got some music, and it's got another set of pics. We may not use them all, but go ahead and save, and then go ahead and bring in that audio folder. Mine's called Basic Music. And I can't remember if I called it the same thing, but it's only has a couple, 2 or 3 maybe clips, music tracks. Okay. Yours might only have 2. I've got 3 because I got 2 versions of one piece of music in different formats. Anyway, so here's what we're going to do. So this is an exercise that kind of is both technique and also like a workflow option. It can be very efficient depending on what you're doing. It also helps you kind of like visualize, like, how am I supposed to like string together these shots? I've got my music. How do I begin this? How do I build something here? So this is just one example. This piece of music has kind of 2 different um, cadences, rhythms. It's got a very ethereal, sort of slow, languid pace, and then it has a more sort of hard-hitting, punctuated uh, part of the music. All right, so we're gonna deal with both of those things. All right, everybody okay? Everybody got this stuff in? Okay. All right. So this technique is actually called. We're going to use a command or a function that's called automate the sequence. All right, and this is something that is actually found right here. Um, Let me go ahead and click on a clip first. Let me do something. It's this. Why is it not showing up here? Let me see. Oh, I have no sequence. Never mind. Anyway, I'll show you in a minute. Let's go ahead and create a sequence. Right click, new item, and let's go to sequence. And we'll go with our usual 1080p under the HD folder. Okay. Click OK or enter. There we go. So we have a folder, a sequence. we're not going to really stack anything right now. So you're just really going to need video track 1. So I'm going to make that a little taller, and audio 1. Okay. So we are going to work with some music here. Okay. Save that. All right. So let's just call this main sequence. Okay. Let's open up this P3. So let's put the music in first, actually. Let's open that up. P3 music. Go ahead and double click it, and it's going to open up in your source. And I think we took a glance at the music when we used it in Project 1, but we really just kind of dropped it in. We didn't really do much with it. It was kind of pre-edited. This is not pre-edited. This is produced. But when you can see that, you can see what the music looks like. You can see that right here. This is pretty low, and then something gets louder, and then it even gets louder over here. So I'm just going to play here for a second. And you can hear here that this is a very sort of ethereal, slow, languid pace, right? I'm going to fast forward it a little bit. And then in a minute here, it starts to build. Anyway, so it's building, and then you can see, and you can magnify this little area here, right? You can even use your, no, I guess you can't. You can drag your little rings here to magnify a specific section. You can see just as it gets to the end of this little section, it's going to get, something's going to happen here. So let me go back. All right, so you can see the difference there where you can visually look at your audio, which is really a huge advantage of nonlinear editing. And you can see it's quiet, and then this is like a punctuation point, and we're going to take advantage of that. But first, we're going to string some images for this first part. So, as an editor, as a producer, as a conceptualist, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to fit the idea that I'm trying to communicate. We're going to start with like these sort of like very tranquil, peaceful scenes, and then we're going to get into like a little bit more like chaos, kind of like, things are getting maybe a little bit out of control or busy. All right. So it's a mood piece, kind of, maybe a commentary on whatever humanity and civilization and how we're destroying everything. Who knows? However you want to spin it, right? But it's really the idea of taking music and images that are completely not related and creating a story. Okay, so let's go ahead and just drop this whole track in. Okay, and you grab it by right here, just like we did on Project 1. We're not marking any in and outs right now. We're just going to grab it and bring it down to 1. The whole thing lasts, it's about 3.5 minutes. We're not going to edit all 3 minutes of this. We're going to go to about like 125, 130, right in here somewhere. After you hear that little like screeching guitar, so let's say take it to about 130. So you can take your playhead to the 130 point. You can do 2 things. And this, we're going to get into more of this music later. You can trim it, and you can trim it to the playhead, right? So we don't need all that extra stuff. I'm going to undo that. You can also come over here and grab the razor, okay, which has a shortcut for C. So you can click that, come right to the playhead and cut it. Now, I don't know if I've shown you this shortcut. Whenever you go over here and select different tools in the tool palette, when you bring your mouse back in, it doesn't automatically turn back into your selection tool, right? So if you keep this without changing it, you're going to keep cutting stuff, right? And you don't want to do that. So what you do is, if you're in that other tool and you're floating around in the timeline, just hit the letter V, okay? And V will give you the selection tool. And when you hover over here, you can see that it's also the shortcut. Okay. All of these have different shortcuts, and we'll get into some more of these, some of the tools. Okay. So now we've cut it right here. We're going to select the back end and just delete it just so we don't have all that extra stuff. Okay. So now we'll come in here. Let's magnify that a little bit, right? So we can see the music. I'm going to actually sort of I'm going to read. There you go. So I have a decent image of that. All right. So save that. And now we're gonna get into this automate technique. Again, this is a way to save time and kind of create what we call like a rough cut. Kind of like when we did our project one, we laid in the initial shots and then we did a little tweaking at the end, with a title, threw a couple dissolves, and then faded to black and all that. Here we're gonna just kind of string the shots together and then we're gonna tweak them and adjust them a little bit. Okay. All right. And part of the idea is to be efficient in this sense. So for this initial very languid part, which lasts about 1 minute, 6 seconds, we're going to use these nature stills right here. All right. So this folder that says nature stills 1920 by 1080. Now, as you remember, we set our sequence to those settings. And whenever you want to check your sequence settings, you come right up here to sequence, click, and you have to actually have that sequence selected in the timeline. There it is. Sequence, and go to sequence settings. Okay. And you can see what those settings are. Basically, it's telling you your 1920, 1080. This right here is the aspect ratio. I think we've talked about this. We'll talk a little bit more about it. This is essentially like the shape of your image. 16:9 is what HD looks like, right? It's more horizontal, whereas the old traditional standard definition years ago was more boxy because it was 4:3. So this is technically a multiplication of that. You can see the 30 frames per second here. You can see it reiterated down here. Okay, so you know that that is your sequence settings, and you can have multiple sequences in a project, as we know, right? So the project settings are not the same as the sequence settings. The sequence settings can be independent of each other, and you can have multiple sequences with different settings within a project. Okay, and we're not getting that complicated. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do this once and then undo it, and then we can all do it. So what we're going to do here is you can see that in this project bin, right? In the folder we brought in, there's a whole bunch of still images inside that folder. They're numbered numerically, and let's just kind of double click on a few of them, right? We can make this a little bigger here if we want, since we don't need as much timeline. And these are just like a lot of the first shots are very sunrise oriented, sunsets, right? And just keep going down. You can even hit your down arrow, and I guess that doesn't really select it. And there's just a lot of pretty nature shots, and they're all 16:9, 1920, 1080, so they fit perfectly in this sequence settings, right? Right? So those are all those shots, okay? Now, we're gonna like spread them out and cover up this first minute to kind of like establish our story, right? It's kind of like the beginning, it's peaceful, etc. Now now by default, when you import these still images, and we're going to get into preferences later, they all come in, as I've mentioned before, just like when you create titles, they're 5 seconds by default, okay? But of course, when you bring them in, you can, because this is still image, it's endless, right? You can trim it out and make it as long as you need, as opposed to video, which has finite durations, right? Which we've learned, okay? So now, let's say you're looking at this and you're like, okay, I'm listening to the music and like, where would I change the shot, you know? Well, it's not as obvious when you listen to it, right? It's not like a piece of music that, say, popular music, which usually has a pretty solid beat and you can count it out. This is much more, abstract, right? So what we're going to do is we'll just go ahead and use the default duration of these images and then just kind of string them together, right? But the great thing is we won't have to do every single edit, right? Because these are 5 seconds long, and to cover up 1 minute and 6 seconds would take about 13 shots of equal duration, right? So one way you can do it is say you've already organized these in the order that you want, and you can do that. So let's say hypothetically, this is what I did here by numering, right? And you can always change that. You can double click and, change that number if you want. If I wanted Mac to be like 14, right? So now I could sort by name, and that would of course be at the end. But now I've got two 14s, but it's a different file name, so that's okay. Let me set that back to 1. So let's say you already did that, fair enough. So you could have that, you could already have thought that far ahead, right? Actually, I'm going to double click on nature still so I only see those images, right? Okay. So I can say, if I click on the first one, and I'm gonna bring these in the way they're listed here. I'm gonna hold down Shift. Remember, I'm a PC, and I'll highlight them all. Now I can grab them and just drop them in. Let's try that again. Let go. There you are. And so now they're all lined up, just shy of the 6 second, right? But then I could always extend this here. Okay, so that's pretty easy if that was already the order that I wanted. But what if it's not the order that I wanted and I don't feel like rearranging them, but I'm gonna, I have a different order that I want. Okay, so you can see in one slit in one pretty simple move, I can just drop them all in, right? All right, so I'm gonna undo that. And now let's say I want to do a different order. Let's say I want to start with one of these pictures at the end. So now there I did click, I selected the first image, I held down Shift and I hit the bottom and selects everything, right? Just a basic computer move. Now I'm going to hit Control and I'm going to select them out of order. Okay. So let me do that and I'll do it and then we'll all do it. Okay. So I'm going to go back in. So let's say I'm going to start with 13. I'm going to hit Control and maybe now I'll go back to the first image and then I'll come back down to my leg and just kind of mix it up, right? So it's going to be a different order. It's out of order. It's out of the what's the actual sort order, right? Right. And I'm going to keep clicking this and I want to end with that sunrise. So I've selected the same group, but just in a different order. Now, I could also drop them in, but let me give you a little intro to this little tool right here, automate the sequence, right? So that's highlighted because you have a sequence and you've selected some clicks and you open that up, okay? So this dialog box, and I'm going to redo this in a minute. So just pay attention and then we'll do it all together. And you can do whatever order you want on your pictures, all right? In this dialog box, it gives you two options here for ordering: selection order or sort order. So sort order is how it's already stacked naturally. Selection order is what I just did. Now, if I had selected top to bottom, then it would have been the same thing, right? But I selected this out of the sort order. So I'm going to go selection, placement sequentially. It's really the only option I get. You're going to see that second option in a minute. We want overwrite edit. You don't want insert because if you do an insert, it's going to actually cut the audio track and insert all those images and push everything over. Let's just go ahead and do an insert and then we'll undo it. So you see, so you don't want to do that. I'm going to undo that. You actually want to go sequential. I'm sorry, not sequential, overwrite, because then it will lay it on top. See? Now, my mistake there, I had the playhead. The playhead will also serve as the beginning of those sequences, so of those images. So let me put that back in the very beginning. Do it again, sequential overwrite, and you can see that it sits on top of the music. It doesn't interrupt or disturb or compromise the music in any way. So now you've got a different order, right? We're ending with like one of the sunsets. We're starting with like this mountain, okay? All right, so I'm going to deselect that. So I want everybody go ahead and select this in whatever order you want. Select 13 of them, okay? I'll start with maybe number 7. I'm gonna just jump around and maybe keep my sunrises towards the beginning and finish up. So I'm selecting everything, and then there I am. So I've got 13 selected in whatever order I chose, right? Let me move my playhead back to the very beginning so it's sitting at the beginning, right? Click automate the sequence. Okay. On order, I'm going to go sort order. I'm going to go sequentially, overwrite, pretty simple. Still clip duration, use in and out range. It's going to default to the 5-second duration of these stills. So hit OK, and it drops them in. All right. I'm going to save that. Looks like we might have a question here. Hang on a second. Yes. Is there a question there, Daniel?
Yeah, I was wondering because it noticed that you had clip overlap set to 0 on your end, but by default on mine it was 30. I don't know what that is actually. Like I set it to 0, but can you tell me what that is?
That would be like if you were doing like transitions. I'm surprised it was set to that. That's probably something in your preferences. Did anybody else have that in their yeah, you're talking about this. Hang on a minute. Let me go back in. Uh Clip overlay. Right here it said 30, huh?
Yeah, I just was wondering. Like it was a quick change, but I was just
That
wondering
would
what it would
be
change.
when we're doing transitions. Okay, which we will do in a few minutes. But so you could change that to 15 frames, 30 frames. Yeah, but right here we're not I don't even think it would even matter. Let me actually try it by leaving that because we're not actually doing any transitions. Okay, so I'm going to delete those for a minute. I still have them selected. Let me see if that even matters right now. 30. Sort order sequentially overwrite. I wonder if it would. Well, it ended shorter. It did make him a little shorter because this was supposed to go to there. So yeah, I guess yeah, we're not overlapping any of the clips. I wonder if you know what it probably did. It probably kind of created an overlap, but we didn't need that here. That's kind of more for video. So yeah, leave that at 0. Good question. And oops, my playhead was way over there. So yeah, set that at 0. Click OK. Sort order sequential overwrite. Boom. Yeah, it should bring you right about to 104. And so here, just take that last clip and extend it, right? Do a trim, and you can magnify right here. You see the burst right here with the music, right? Right? It's sort of like that crash. Then go ahead and extend that just up to that point. If you want, put your playhead there, magnify it all the way in, and literally bring that up to that crash point.
Yes, sir.
So it should go black right when you hear that crash. Okay, let me demagnify there. Yes, question. Noor, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see the automate sequence come up on my screen. Can you show you how you did it one more time?
It didn't come up on your project panel? Yeah, hang on, let me go back. It should be right here. Now, is your maybe you have it too squeezed in? Expand that panel a little bit. Maybe it's tucked away. See how
Okay.
it
What
looks like
is the
it looks like a little accordion.
Oh, okay, I see it now.
Yeah, so let me deselect. Yeah, it should be highlighted no matter what. It should be, active, like something that you can click on. All
Okay.
right. Yeah, so that's with that. Here, I'll do that again. Let me just do it again so everybody can at least get that. Uh, so this is like, as you can see, I just basically did about 13 edits, rough edits, in one basic command. I mean, a couple of commands, right? So let me go ahead and grab these. I'm just grabbing out of order. Oops, I hit shift. So let me go back. I'll start with 1. Hold down control. Right, jump around a little bit. Make some more sunrise. Come back down. Boom, and then I think that's 13. Yeah. So now you've got those highlighted. You got your playhead at the beginning. In this case, again, this is just one example. You could do this anywhere in your timeline. If you wanted to start here and you only needed like, 5 clips, you could. This is just the basic technique workflow. go to automate, select which option you want. In this case, if you took the time to sort it a certain way, and so if it's already sorted like 1 to 13, how you want it, then technically it's kind of the same thing. It's like sort order, selection order. You just highlight everything. It's kind of like how it's already done, right? So it's only when you go, and you're clicking control and you're kind of going out of sequence, so to speak, right? In different points there. Sequential, overwrite, edit, then hit OK, and there you go. You lay in all those shots. Because the other option would have been to say, okay, I need every clip to come in at about 5 seconds, right? And then you'd be dropping every clip, every 5 seconds. But you can do it if you're going to do something kind of uniform like this, you're going for a consistent flow, a certain consistent pacing, at least at the beginning of this. This is one great way to do it that will save you time. So I'm going to trim that out. I'm going to magnify that little point. So right when that crash comes in, right? So that last clip ends. So I extended that a little bit. Okay. So save. I'm going to hit my backslash to resize everything. So now I've got those images there. So now let's go ahead and play that for a minute and take a look at this. Okay. So I'm trying to like reflect the mood of that music with these images. Okay, they look pretty nice. That feels pretty peaceful, sunsets, sunrises, all that kind of stuff. But it's very static, right? Nothing's happening here, right? Yeah, the shot changes, right? But we want to create some movement, right? We've got all these tools. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do like even just simple scale adjustments on each one of those clips. And there's 13 of them. But we don't have to do it on each one. We're going to do it on one, and then we're going to copy and paste it all across all of those clips, and then we're going to add a transition all across of them in about 3 or 4 clicks. So you don't have to do it for each one. And that's kind of where the efficiency comes in on the workflow, right? So let me go back, right? So we're here, right? We got the clips, all right? And I'm giving myself a little room up here above the track 1. I'm going to push this down a little bit so I got a little space. All right, so first off, we'll go to the first clip, right? And whatever clip you selected, double click and open it up in the source, which of course will now also reveal it in the effects control, right? Source effects control. And this is Sunrise Beach. If you ever want to double check, yeah, Sunrise Beach Golden. Yeah, it looks like Sunrise Beach Golden. Yeah. So let's go to the very beginning. We're not going to get too crazy with the motion. We're just going to do like a simple scale adjustment, right? We'll leave it uniform. Select the keyframe at the very beginning, and then go to the end of that clip, right? And remember how we did on Tuesday? We had 2 clips, and if you go too far, you'll see the next clip. So just go back, and you're now sitting on the very last frame of that first clip, right? Add a keyframe, and let's make this like 120. So we're doing about a 20% move, right? If you want to preview it, bring that back. See, so now it feels like it's moving a little bit better with the music, right? 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 So we're really on project 3, we're going to the next level, trying to achieve this sort of cadence, this rhythmic feel with our editing. But now we have music to help us out. We were doing that in project 2, but now we have music to kind of like dictate that pacing. So it helps us out, okay, in that respect, right? All right, and so now, so there's the move. If you want to adjust it, you could make it, a faster move, a slower move, whatever you want to do. If you want to add rotation, you can do whatever you want, but we'll just keep it at that to exemplify the workflow. So now, right, we got it. So now you go to that first clip and you right click on it, right? Click away, right click on that first clip where you just added that position, those 2 position keyframes, go to copy, right? You go to copy, and then you click on the next clip. Okay, just a simple left click, regular click. Now you right click again on that second click. I'm sorry, on the second clip, right? And now you go to paste attributes, right? So to repeat, right? I did my move on the first one. It has these motion effects. Right click on it, copy, right? Actually, we're not even going to click on the second one. My mistake. Click and drag over all of the remaining clips. You might have to demagnify to see them all, right? So we copied, right click, copy, first one, click and drag over all of these remaining images, right? And then within that selection, anywhere within that selection, right click and hit paste attributes. Click on that, and then it's going to give you this little dialog box. What do you want to paste? You're copy and pasting the keyframes. So the motion's already selected. If you had done some opacity, time remapping is a different thing. This is all we're doing, motion. If you had like video effects, it might ask you if you want to copy those too. But right now it's just a simple motion. Click OK. So now it just applied it to all of those clips, right? So now I'm going to release that and play through. And you can see as you scrub through, you see every image is moving exactly just like the previous image. So you've got that continuous kind of flow. And you just did 13 edits with basically like 3 or 4 clicks, right? If you had to like literally, create a keyframe for each one of them, you'd be here all day, right? Right? Wouldn't be the end of the world because you're doing print simple, but Premiere gives you this great ability to sort of like copy and paste. And this isn't necessarily now part of the automate part. The automate part is dropping stuff in. Okay. But this is again a workflow option. This could come in handy for you if you have a section where I just need a bunch of consistent images flowing at the same pace, and I just want like a little kind of a move, and I'm going to set one and then copy and paste it against all the other ones, right? Saves you time, right? Saves you headaches. And then you can always go back and adjust those keyframes if you want. It's up to you. You can do anything you want, right? All right. So is this making sense, everybody? This is at least this part, right?
Absolutely.
So it's the copy and paste, and you can see that copy and paste just, works everywhere. We did copy and pasting with keyframes last week, right? Or Tuesday, right? Where we did, we did the hammer, right? We were working with anchor point, and so you create a move and then you just duplicate it. So you can do the same thing here. So that very basic computing copy and paste technique applies here in different ways. All right, so now we're going to do the same kind of idea, but now we're going to do it. Let's add a transition. Okay, so same thing. We're just going to add a basic dissolve. So now we're going to click and drag. Click and drag. You don't have to include the playhead here on this. Click and drag and just highlight all of your still images so far, right? A selection. And you could also use this track select forward tool. If you click this, hang on a minute. There's a little notch here which gives you another option. It's a little funky sometimes to get that to open up. There we go. Track select tool forward. Okay, yeah. If I do this, well, that also highlighted the music. I didn't want that. Wonder if I deselect that, will it only give you the video? No, it seems to be wanting to adjust that. There it is. If you hit shift, right, on this little track select tool, this is another way you can select all those images, right? I'm clicking away to release everything. It gives you 2 arrows, which means it's going to grab multiple layers. If you hit shift, it gives you only 1 arrow, and you can also select it that way. Okay, so there's another option, and we're incorporating the tool palette, right? And again, you're in this track select thing, so hit V, and you go back to the selection tool, right? So if you don't like clicking and dragging, or what we call lassoing, kind of like a lasso, like you rope a horse or something, then you can also use this, but you want to hit shift if you're only just doing those layers, right? So I'm going to click and drag. and just include, you don't have to like go from the very beginning. Just grab any part of that first one and just grab a little bit of that last one, and it's all selected. Okay. So now we're going to go up to sequence, and we're going to apply the dissolve, which is the default transition in Premiere. It's not the most basic transition. The most basic transition is what? Can anybody tell me? What's the most basic transition? Not a trick question. We did it on project 1.
Fade, crossfade.
Not quite. What were the majority of the edits in project 1?
It's just a cut.
Yeah, just a cut, right? I know I'm not really good at shadow puppets, but okay. So yeah, that's the most basic. The second most basic would be dissolves, right? But so don't let that confuse you. As far as, transitions that are more sort of, getting into those effects, the default transition here is dissolve. Okay, so we've got all that highlighted, right? Now we go up to sequence, and we're going to come down here to apply default transitions to selection, right? And you can see the shortcut Shift D on the PC. I think that would that be Option? I can't remember on the Mac keyboard, whatever that translation is on the Mac, right? So it's sequence and apply default transitions to selection. Click that, and boom. Maybe hard to see because you're demagnified on those images, but if you now position your playhead and zoom in, you can see, and kind of like release those layers, you can see that there's transitions on all of them, right? Right. So now, yeah, so these are like 30-second transitions, which is fine. I'm not 30 seconds, sorry. 1 second, 30 frames, which is fine for this because it's also giving you a nice little fade up, right? So it added it to the very beginning and it added it to the end, which we'll get rid of in a minute. But now when you play this through, so now it feels a lot smoother, much more. It flows a little better with the music, and you're doing these soft transitions from one image to the other, which enhances the whole idea, peace, harmony, all that kind of stuff, right? Right, and so it's all the way through. If you wanted to adjust any of those transitions, you could have, of course, click on that transition, right? Double click and open up the duration, and you could change that to 15 frames or whatever if you want, right? I'm not going to. I'm gonna leave it kind of slow. A 1 second transition is considered kind of long, but in this case, it works pretty well because it kind of really flows with the music, right? So there's lots of, again, like I've been reiterating since day one, more and more and more decisions to make. It's all about that pacing, that rhythm, right? Editing is very much about that. Okay. So now, not only did we, at least make that sort of a lot nicer than it was originally, we only really had to, I mean, that was like maybe 5 edits, maybe 6, and we've got 13 images pretty much done, right? Unless we want to go and mess around with them some more, maybe do some other effects on them. But as far as that sort of basic sequence or part of that sequence, it works fairly well. And you've also, as I've mentioned, you're now combining motion effects and a transition, right? So, couple brownie points. Okay, even if it's not a big move, you don't want those images just sitting there static. Okay. All right. So is that making any sense? Hopefully this is getting you, opening up your mind, thinking about how do I even approach this project, right? And we'll look at a few samples tonight before we close out. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. Feel free to ask if you are something's not making sense. All right. So now now we're gonna work on the second half of this, and we're gonna build on this technique. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna actually kind of listen to this, as we would say, on the fly, kind of in real time. And again, watch me. And you don't have to get this perfect. Again, you may not use any of these techniques. I just want to show you that this is an option. You know, you may only use this, what we just did, with maybe 5 or 6 images, but it could save you time. Instead of having all those edits, you could do it pretty quickly. This next technique is also another way, if when you're working with music that has a very strong meter, as we say in music, you know, it's a good beat, like 1, 2, 3, 4, very solid, more punctuated. Okay, we're going to actually add markers on the timeline, and then we're going to select those shots, and we're going to do the automate thing, and it's going to drop, and it's going to actually um what's the right word here, it's going to acknowledge those markers as edit points, so you don't have to actually create edit points or make in and outs in order to, you know, sparse out your shots. So watch me. I'll undo everything, and then we'll do it again. Okay. All right. So now we're at this point, right? And oh, before we go any further, go to the very end of that first still image, and you've got a cross dissolve. It just does that because you've highlighted everything. The thing at the very beginning is good because it gives us a nice little fade up, which is perfect. But just click on that cross dissolve at the end of the last still and just delete it, because we want this to actually cut hard right on that sort of crashing sound, right? Right? Okay, so now we want to take advantage of this part. So now I'm going to play this in real time. And again, don't worry if you don't get it perfect when you try this in a few minutes. I do have a little bit of advantage because I am an old rusty drummer, so I listen to beats and stuff. But just watch what I do, okay? And I'm going to be adding these markers, and I'm going to be using the shortcut. Okay, first off, I'm going to deselect my all my tracks in the timeline, right? And I'm gonna kind of like set up my playhead back there, and I'm gonna play this, and then when I mark something, I'm gonna hit the letter M, and it's gonna put that little green, you see that little green sort of notch right there. Okay, I'll do one over here as well. And there it ended, and the audio, if I got to deselect the audio, boom, and then it puts it in the timeline. So these are markers, and you can click on these and actually open them up and put information here. We use these a lot at work, which kind of gives you little notes, and this is just one basic way to use that. If I want to clear this, I can clear markers right there. All right, so watch. So I'm going to play this and listen to it, and as I hear, let me play the music for a minute and just listen to it. Okay, let me magnify that little section a little bit more. There you go. So there's a little section I'm going to be working on. Okay, so I'm listening for that da 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 da. It's not exactly perfect, what we would call 4/4, which is like 99.9% of popular music. It's slightly offbeat, but you just kind of count it out. It's more or less about every few seconds, and it's pretty consistent. Right, so on that da 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 da, I'm gonna put one of those markers. Right, I'll undo it all, and we'll do it again. Here we go. All right, so you're just gonna see the timeline. Let me actually back this up a little bit so I can kind of prepare, and I'm gonna bring it in. So I'm going to stop after we get to that little screeching guitar right here. we'll maybe add another marker. So I've added 1, 2, 3, 4. There's probably a way to count them, but I can't remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I added another 13 markers. Okay. So that term on the fly, meaning you're just kind of like doing it like as you go, right? So now I'm going to take the second step and then I'll undo everything and then we'll do it again. So now I'm going to use the automate to sequence thing and I'm going to select the shots in the order that I want from another folder, and they're going to fall in right where those markers are, right? So I won't have to like necessarily like open it up in the source panel and say, okay, this shot needs to be like 3 seconds, and then I'm going to have to do every image that I want in order and cut it down to 3 and then drop it in. I can kind of use those markers to accelerate and make that process quicker. And then I can still tweak it. If something's off, I can move it around, trim it, whatever, but I can get pretty close to where I want. And the more you do this, you get better at it. Okay. So now, first off, I take my playhead back and I'm going to actually right click here and I'm going to say go to previous marker. So that playhead starts on that first marker. Okay. So the next image will start right there and continue. All right. So now I'm going to go in here. I'm going to get out of this. And by the way, this is a preference that we'll look at later in terms of how your bins behave, right? You can see that, if I open a bin, I'm inside only that bin. And to get out of it, I have to move up one level, right? And reveal the other bins. So you can do it that way. There's different ways to set that up. So now I'm going into civilization, right? I'm going to close that up. There's civilization. Let me open that up, go in. My first shot's going to be crowd, and here it is, right? It's just kind of this crowd, right? And then I'm going to kind of like go in order. I'm going to kind of like mix up some of this order a little bit. And I'm going to select 13 clips, right? All right, so I'm going to start with that. I'm going to jump down here. Now I'm hitting control. I'm going to go down to fuzzy neurosis, fisheye, maybe come down here to giant traffic jam. That's 4. I'm going to avoid this shot for now because we're going to use that later with that screeching guitar, right? So let me come down here to intersection. I'm really kind of like stressing the idea of traffic and all of that. Too many people, work stress. Sure, why not? Let me see, how many do I have? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. I think that's 13. Okay, so I've kind of literally, oh wait, I think I screwed that up. Let me do it again. Oh, interesting. I think I duplicated some images. I don't know how I did that actually. Yep, I somehow duplicated some images. Let me go back. There you go. I just did a Control Z. That was weird. All right, my bad. All right, here we go again. I won't get so creative this time. And actually, I'm going to expand that window for a minute, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What else is down here? 10, 11, 12. Actually, no, I only need, I'm going to do 12 right now. Okay. So you saw that order. I selected my own order. I'm going to go down to automate. Right? No, I want selection order, right? That's how I selected them. Now, instead of sequential, I get this option here, at unnumbered markers, which represents those little markers I put in. Okay. And I'm going to also do an overwrite. That doesn't change because I don't want to cut the music. And you can see, so it's interesting because if you do overwrite, it should, well, yeah, at unnumbered markers, it doesn't even give you a clip overlap option. So that's all you got to do. Now watch. When I hit OK, let me move that up. When I hit OK, those shots are going to land on those markers, and each shot is going to begin. Each new shot begins at those markers. So it's kind of like doing edits for you already. Click OK, boom. Okay. And so now watch. We'll play this through. Let me push this back up. Let's go back, and you're going to see these shots change. Let me magnify that section a little bit, and then I'm going to undo all of this, and we'll do it again. Okay? All right, so here we go. Well, by then we're going to go to another shot. So, but you see the idea, right? Let me magnify. You can see that right on those markers, there's a cut, right? So this one here, I just need to maybe extend it a frame, right? And so I didn't have to do each one of those cuts individually. I kind of marked it with those markers, and then I select the order of those shots, and I just drop them in, and those markers kind of do the work for me, which is great. Again, you may not even use this, but if you're using something that has a really strong, consistent meter, and you want to just cut on those beats, this is a great way to do it. It can save you some time and frustration, right? And a little brain energy. Okay, so I'm going to undo all that, and then I want everybody else to try it. Right, I'll do it again. So I'm just going to like drag over those and delete those. And I'm going to right click in the timeline here in the ruler, right, where all the little notches are. And I'm going to clear, hang on a second. It's not giving me the option to clear those markers. There we go. I think I had to click down here. Yes, I had to have them all highlighted. Now I right click, and it's still not giving me the chance to clear those markers. Clear in and out, clear markers. Oh, there they are, clear markers. Okay, so now I'm going to do it on my own, do it on your own, and try to get those markers in place. Okay, back up a little bit and play it through and do the best you can. Hang on, Bit. Word of the wise. Take a look at what I'm doing. Don't have your audio selected when you start. Deselect that audio. So it shouldn't be highlighted. It shouldn't be selected. Don't have it selected, because if you have it selected, when you put the marker, it puts it on the audio. And I think that might still work, but it's harder to see. I like to see it up here on the timeline ruler. Okay. All right. So put it back, click away, release that, and now just hit your space bar and then get ready with your M key. Yeah, and once you get to that screeching guitar, just stop. I'll hold there for a minute. And once you put those markers, you can, zoom in on that if you want, magnify that little section. Okay. And just as a abundance of caution, I just put the playhead back on on that first marker. Just to reiterate, that's where I want to start. Okay. And then go and select your shots. You really only need about 12, because we'll be changing a shot there. Okay. But start with crowd. I want everybody to start with crowd, because we're going to do a specific effect on crowd. Okay. And then from there, you can do whatever order, but just avoid the Lady BW Distress. Don't use that. Okay. So those are the only conditions. Start with crowd. Don't use black and white Lady Distress. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Right. NYC. Let's see. That's 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12. Okay. And then I've selected them. I'm going to go automate. Selection order, a numbered markers. It generally tends to default to the last thing you did. Click OK. Boom. And you can see I had the marker here. It just kept it 5 seconds, but we're going to clean that up. Okay. I'll be right back. Go ahead and play with that, and I'll be right back, and then we'll continue with some more technique on this piece. All right. So first off, we're going to, first off, I have a little black hole right here. So I'm just going to I'm actually going to start my crowd maybe a frame earlier, and I'm going to maybe trim this back. And because I really want it right on that boom, right? So now it should really just cut right to that crowd, right? So it's a still shot, nothing happening, right? And there's the next edit for the first shot. Okay, so we're going to click on crowd, and we want to like take advantage of this change in tone, this punctuation, you know, to sort of introduce this chaotic section, right? So click on crowd, we open it up in the effects control. Let's do like position, scale, and rotation. All right, so the technique here, and I don't know if I've already shown you this keyframing technique. Some of you may have already played around with it. I haven't watched Project 2's yet. We're going to create like a very quick, sudden thrust, like a burst, and then it's just going to float. All right. So as you can kind of imagine, thinking about what we've been doing, we're going to create some keyframes very close together with different variables, different values, and then we're going to create one later with a very subtle difference, right? And it's going to give us this kind of like boom, and then it's going to keep floating. Okay. All right. So let's go back in, right? So let's go in literally like 10 frames. All right. So here's the very beginning of crowd. If you want, you can just click here and go plus 10. And that might even be too slow. Actually, I can tell you right now that's going to be too slow. But let's try it, right? So position's going to stay okay right now, but we're going to add a scale keyframe, all right? We're also going to add a keyframe for rotation so we can create like a little bit of a move, right? And then we're going to jump back to the first keyframe on rotation and just kind of rotate it a little bit. Give me like maybe about a 25%, maybe about a 30% angle. Now, you have to be careful here. You can see that you're starting to see the black edges of the beyond the clip, right? You don't want to see that. So sometimes you have to go back and forth. So we're going to actually scale this up a little bit so we don't see that. We only want to see the image. So that brings me to about 115. Actually, let's do this, put this at about 125. Okay, right? And then this second keyframe, we're going to make that like 150. Okay. So now let's see how this initially comes in, right? We're going to come back, right? We're going to come out of this little peaceful era, right? So you can see it as soon as that shot changes, right? Now, not bad. It kind of seems to go with the rhythm, but I want that even faster, right? So we got a quick little rotation. We kind of zoom in. Let's go to that second keyframe and make that even tighter. Let's go to like 160, just a little bit tighter. And let's move these keyframes closer. So I'm going to drag that, kind of like split the difference, right? Now let's see what that looks like. Oops, sorry. Here we are, right there. Okay. All right, so now you can see that. So it literally just kind of goes boom, right? So now we're going to add one more keyframe towards the end, the very end of the clip, and make a very slight adjustment on scale. And it will it will do the initial burst and then just kind of float in. Again, just different types of pacing techniques that you may want to consider. So again, there I went too far. Let me go back. I'm in fuzzy neurosis. Let me go back one frame. And there I am. I'm on the last frame of my crowd. So I'll add another keyframe, and my second keyframe was 160. Try like 170 here, right? So now when it that point, and it keeps moving, but it gives you that initial burst. And then of course, it's going to change. Okay, so try to get that to happen, right? And I'm going to keep this up. You've got 2 keyframes. The initial scale is 125. My rotation is 30. When I jump to the second keyframe, which is only literally 5 frames away, and you can look at the time code. If I snap back to the first keyframe, it's 106.22. Second keyframe is 106.27. 5 frames. That's a sixth of a second, right? That's pretty fast, like boom. Okay. And then the second keyframe, well, rotation is done, 0. And my scale is 160. And then the very last keyframe, I don't adjust anything else. I just give it about a 10% differential, and it keeps it floating in. Okay. So now here's one more thing you can add to that cut if you want to give it a little bit more panache, as they say in Italian, or a little bit more punctuation, or draw attention to that edit, to that sound, to that crash. Let's go into the transitions folder, right? Actually, let's go into effects, and we'll go into video transitions. Remember, you can use all of these. You can use video transitions, video effects, etc. Let's go into dissolve, and we're going to go to dip to white, right? This is essentially how you create like a little flash, right? So grab that and drag it right on that cut point. Okay, if you need to magnify that little point, blow that up a little bit, bring in the dip to white. It's going to give you a 1 second dip to white, which is going to be too slow. Double click it so you get to the set duration, and try like 6 frames on the duration. Okay, click OK. And now it's going to give you kind of like this quick little flash in addition to whatever you've already done. Let's go back, play that through. See, so it gives you that just additional. And if you think that's too short or too long, go ahead, double click it again. You know, you can make it a little longer. I generally wouldn't go beyond 10 frames. That can seem a little long because you want it to be literally almost like a flash, right? So that's about 6 frames, gives you that effect. And again, there you go. Now you've used another transition and you're using motion effects, right? So you can see how you can combine all of these tools that you have in Premiere, right? Tools are good. Is this giving anybody any ideas? Is it kind of like gelling a little bit? Like, oh yeah, I think I have some ideas maybe of what I can do with some of the stuff I'm gonna use, hopefully. Is this helping you think through this project a little bit? Yes, no? Tell me if it's not. You got 1 thumbs up. Okay. I'll take it for now. I got 2. Okay. All right. Good. Good. All right. So now let's talk about a few other things. So you notice that, for example, this next shot, right, doesn't fill the screen. Can anybody tell me why that's not filling the screen? We talked about this a little bit more in detail on Monday. We'll talk about it some more tonight.
Sequence is too big.
Well, yeah, the settings for the sequence, right, the dimensions are larger than this image. Right, so this image is smaller. It doesn't match the exact dimensions of our sequence settings, which is 1920 by 1080. Okay, so and what happens with Premiere, so let me explain this, and it may not resonate right away, but what Premiere does is when it brings in still images, when you import still images, it brings them in what we call natively. You're going to see that word used a lot in editing and editing systems and terminology. When something comes in native, it is not being altered. Okay, so Premiere is bringing this in, and it's not trying to resize it automatically to match the sequence settings, right? So that's why if it's smaller, you're going to have black space around the edges. If it's bigger, then you're only going to see part of the image, and you're going to have to scale it down to reveal the rest of that image because it's coming in natively. So the frame is only this big, right? Like a frame on a picture, but the actual picture is like way bigger. So if you were to cut it out on the frame, you're only going to see like that section of the picture. But with Premiere, with editing systems, you can scale that down to fit inside that frame. Okay, right? So here, right, because we don't want to really have black sitting in the background, now we would have to click on this second shot, which is fuzzy neurosis, right? There it is, right? Do a little position, scale, and we'd have to blow it up a little bit, right? So we have to scale it up to, looks like probably about 190, maybe even more, like 192, right? So now we've already blown it up. So the consideration here to be careful with is if you're going to like zoom in to this, go later and really scale that in, let's say you really want to go ahead, you could potentially be risking the idea of going too far, blowing up this image too far because you already had to scale it up, and you might potentially get into some low resolution issues, some pixelation, etc. So this probably seems like it's holding up okay because it's kind of already fuzzy anyway, right? Right. So this could be, yeah. So I'm just cutting to the next shot and it's going, tight on this person, right? And then we have the next one. Let's see. I think this one. And by the way, if you ever wanted, and again, like I said, ideally you want to find images that are going to match your sequence settings, which is going to be 1920 and 1080, 1920, 1080 for this project. But you may find some images that you really like that aren't going to quite match that. As long as they're not too small and you can scale them up and still look good, feel free to use them, right? And if they're bigger, you can scale them down and use them. So again, you have that option, because everything you're going to find, you might find stuff you really like that's just not in the same resolution, image dimensions. All right. So this one, I think, and you can right click on any one of these and check out their properties, right? So there's the crowd shot. So this was, yeah, a little bigger, right? This is actually a decent amount, a little bigger than 1920, 1080, 2535 by 1630, right? This one is probably somewhere around like 900 something. Okay, that was 1,666. So that's why you saw that black space around it. Okay, but also the crowd, you saw some black because it was actually pretty rectangular, right? So it was a little bit more rectangular than ours. And this next shot, I believe this is a big one if we go properties. Yeah, so this is huge. You see that image size right there? Right? Does everybody see the pop-up window I'm pulling up? It's included in the share, right? Everybody see that? Yes or no?
Yeah, it's showing up.
Okay. So you can see this is huge, right? So this is like twice, at least twice, horizontally higher resolution and 3 times almost vertically, right? So I'm only seeing the center of this image. So if I click on this, wait, is this fisheye? Boom, there it is. No. Let me double click. It's not showing it. Yeah, it was showing the other image. Why is this called fisheye? Oh, I think the main sequence has kind of adopted that name. Hang on, let me see something. Go back to the sequence. Oh, main sequence. Why is that showing there? Okay. Hang on a minute. Oh, this is fisheye. Never mind. I thought it was looking at the wrong one. So I'm in this clip. I'm gonna go back to the very beginning and I'm gonna descale. I'm gonna like pull it back. So you can see this is huge, right? So to get that to fill the screen and see the entire image, I have to go back to like 39. So that's pretty much like a 60% reduction to see that full image. Now, I may not want to see the full image, but if I want to, good to know that I've got that. Okay, so I have tons of room here if I want to like really zoom in and blow that up because I got plenty of resolution there. You know, it's kind of like resolution is kind of like you paint, you know, a wall, right? And you have so much paint, and if you only do one coat, it doesn't quite look that great. It doesn't look like rich the way you want it to look. You might need a second coat, right? And so that's kind of like resolution, or you just run out of paint, right? You need more paint, right? So it's kind of like that. Not the greatest uh, translation. Anyway, so all these are a little different. So this one I probably have to scale. We're not going to like mess with each one of them. Now I'm going to show you. So anyway, that's a little quick refresher on the whole image resolutions, sequence settings kind of thing. So now let's go to this point where, okay, right there where we hear that screechy guitar, which is somewhere right around like 121. Let's see. So really, it's almost like right when we see this shot, right? So if you have this, whatever your last shot is, if it's beyond like 122, right? Click it and delete it because we're gonna insert that one lady in that one image. So find this point. So the guitar, the little screechy guitar comes in literally at like 121.27. We'll go ahead, call it 122. So put your playhead at 122.00. And if you still have an image extending beyond that point, just trim it back to the playhead. And we're going to do that last shot for this sequence for now with that one image, which was in Civilization. And it's this one. It's this lady stressing out on the phone. You know, she's at work, you know, headache, migraine, all that kind of stuff. Right. So we're just gonna grab that and drop it in. We don't have to, you know, go to all that trouble, right? And we'll keep it up long as that little screechy guitar section goes. Again, we're taking advantage of a piece, an element in the music that's giving us this little punctuation point. So like right through there, maybe. All right, so let's take it to like 124. Right? Let's go to 124 with the playhead and trim that back. All right. So she'll be up for about like barely 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Okay. All right. So now we're going to take advantage of this picture and we want to stress like some chaos. Right. So now we're going to create a bunch of keyframes in position, scale, and rotation. And we're going to put them very closely and just alter those values very slightly. And we're going to make this thing sort of like wiggle and shimmy or whatever we can, right? To sort of accentuate that accent in the music, right? So we'll select it, go to effect control, go to the very beginning, turn on your position, scale, rotation. First off, we have to resize her a little bit, right? So let's go on scale so we can fill the frame. It fills at about 150, but let's go 155. We're going to need a little bit of margin of error because we're going to start moving this thing around. We don't want to reveal black. So let's go to like 155 on the initial scale property value. Okay, quick save. And now let's literally go forward like 2 frames. 1, 2. Okay. I hit my arrow keys. Remember my our arrow keys on the keyboard? They're next to the page up, page down. They might have home or end. They're the left, right arrow keys. So, or if you want, you could also just come right here and hit +2. Boom. Either way. Add keyframes for all of those properties. And now just make a very slight adjustment. I would do it here in the hot text fields because here you might overdo it. So I'm just going to do like a little, like an X maybe, like move her a little bit to the left and maybe move her a little bit up to the right. I'm sorry, move her up. And then scale, maybe, you know, set that to like 157. right? Maybe a little bigger, 158. And then on rotation, maybe like 15%. Man, that's too much, maybe. Let's just do like 5. Okay. And now we go forward again, 2 more frames. 1, 2. Add those keyframes and now make another alteration. Again, I'll let everybody play with whatever they want. Okay. I'm gonna actually pull her up now this way, maybe on the vertical, and bring her back this way a little bit, right? Horizontally. And maybe scale her down to like 153 if I can. Maybe that's a little bit too small. Let's go 154 if I can get away with it. Man, just gonna do 155. Okay, so I'll bring her back to that size. And actually I I'm gonna go the other way, 160. I'm gonna go 160 here. Okay, and then again I'm gonna go maybe back the other way. Set it at 2 degrees, right? And now go forward 2 more frames. Okay. And bring her back this way. Bring her down. And maybe rotate her this way. Now I'm rotating her -5 to the left, right? Let's add about like 5 or 6 keyframes, sets of keyframes, right? And now maybe bring her back this way. And maybe scale her back down to 155. And maybe move her over because I'm seeing a little black. And bring her up. Okay, and let's do, right now I've got 4, I'm gonna do 2 more. Okay, so you can see this can be very tedious, but once you get something like this, you can then just duplicate it, right? Let's do like 3. Okay, and let's go ahead and actually I'm gonna go like a -2 on that, maybe -4. Okay. Okay. So you can see this gets very mathematical. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna bring her over, maybe scale her up a little bit. Now I'm gonna maybe make a little bit of a bigger move here, right? A little bit more accentuated. Okay, I'm gonna do 1 more set of keyframes. Actually, no, I've got 6. So now if you kind of go through that, you can just see her kind of like moving around, right? It's very quick because you really literally have, it's like barely even 15 seconds, right? 12 seconds. So now move your playhead away, click and highlight all of those keyframes. We did this last week. Let's click it, do it again, right? You can also, I believe you could do Control A. There you go. Control A, Command A selects all of your keyframes, right? You could actually you could snap your playhead to the last set of keyframes and move forward 2 frames from that so you can keep that consistent distance between the keyframes. And now you paste, Control V. Oh, it won't let me Control V. So let me go right click. Oh, I'm sorry. I only selected. So I need to copy, right? So I'm going to copy. And now I should be able to Control V. There you go. All right. And so I'm going to I'm going to use these to jump back to the last couple keyframes, go 2 more keyframes. You've already copied, now just paste again, right? Jump to that last keyframe, go 2 more frames, paste again, right? Jump through those keyframes, 2 more frames, paste again. So now you've got it. Now you're duplicating that. And now you're trying to create like this kind of like random movement, right? Right? Now that maybe goes a little longer. So I would do, because it ends right here. See how the guitar strums right here? So I would, right here, actually, I might get rid of these keyframes. And then just do like a scale adjustment and zoom in on her, which might actually be more dramatic. And just push in on her. If I want to sort of like direct that a little better, right? All right, so now we get the shape. See? You see how it really just matches the music? And if you want to do like a little ease out, try that. Again, you got lots of options here. Actually, I liked it without the ease out. So I'm going to set that back. I'm going to take that. Do I take that out? Hang on. No. If I click on this, I go back to linear. There we go. All right. I might extend that shot. Anyway, so there you go. That's a little bit more creative keyframing. Right? She stopped. I'll just extend that a little bit more so it stays up until the end of the shot. Okay? So you're like literally manipulating the image to really go with the music. Again, I don't expect everybody to do that, but I'm just showing you some options. This is getting into some more intermediate, slightly advanced keyframing. Okay, but this is how powerful this fundamental technique can be. I mean, you can just go crazy with this stuff. You can really add, you know, it really, it's why they call it animation. You're adding character to in, you know, these inanimate images, and like what you did with text and whatever you drew in project 2. All right, so there's some good technique there. Keyframing, the automate the sequence, etc. Now we're gonna do, let's see, we got about 30 plus minutes. We still got a few things to cover. Yeah. Oh yeah, let me talk one thing about this. So one thing I have not talked about is, and that was in one of those study materials. Let me jump into this while I still have this project up. Hang on a minute here. Okay. I'm going to go to the PowerPoint here. Okay. Okay. So we're going to go to this PowerPoint. I want to go through this a little bit. Okay. So this relates to some of the settings we were talking about, right? We talked about aspect ratio, right? This is the old standard 4:3, right? And this is at least the basic standard, and then beyond 16:9 is that rectangular view. So what we're doing, 1920, 1080, high resolution HD is 16:9. And these are frame rate. This is TV stuff. And when you see this acronym, this is what it means. National Television Standards Committee. If you've ever bought a television, right, a flat panel, all of these, if you're going to use an electronic device in the United States, it has to meet NTSC standard. Okay, our color bars are NTSC standard that we put at the beginning of some of our projects, right? Okay. It's kind of just like, you know, if you make a dishwasher, it's got to run on like 120 current, right? So here's some other detail. This is the playback standard in the United States. The time code we use is also meets the standards of SMPTE, which stands for Society Motion Picture Television Engineers. And this is what we've been talking about: proper project settings / sequence settings. It should say sequence settings as well. Optimize video playback and compatibility of your source files. Right? All right. So that's some of the TV stuff. We kind of talked about this. So I have to put the panels. This is what I wanted to bring up, since we're getting into more complex media management, project management. We pretty much know that your project file houses everything else, except technically it doesn't house the media, right? Right? Your project file contains links to your media, right? When we import, we create links to those media, those assets that are sitting on your hard drive. But we're not technically moving that media into your project file, right? We know that because your project file still stays small, even though we import like gigs of material, hence project one. And then once you import those clips into your project, into your project panel, there's a hierarchy. And that initial clip that sits in your project panel is known as a master clip. And then when you open up that master clip or take a section of it and drop it into your timeline, that becomes an instance, sometimes also known as a reference. Okay. And of course, you're dropping all of this in your sequence, right? Which is the organization of clips in your timeline. Think as thumbnails or shortcuts on a desktop. So basically, the hierarchy goes like this. And I wanted to mention this on the first week, but this is really important here because you're bringing in external media and you're going to be organizing it and you're going to be importing all this stuff. So, for example, our nature stills, these are all your master clips, right? Everything in your project panel is your master clip, right? Let's go here for a minute. And where is this shot? Let's see. Okay, that's my first shot. So, for example, if I click on that clip in the timeline, these are your references, right? Or instances. Either one is fine, right? Sometimes it's just easier to say reference. If I click on this and delete it, no issue. It's just gone from my timeline, but it's still here in my project panel because this trumps the reference. Now, let me undo that. If I go up here and try to delete this sunrise from the project panel, I'm going to get a warning, right? So if you ever see this, this means you have something, you have a reference connected to, linked to this master clip that's in your project panel. And so it tells you the selection you're deleting contains clip references in one or more sequences. If you continue, the clip references will also be deleted. Do you want to continue? For the most part, 99.9% of the time, you're going to say no. So Premiere's, giving you a little bit of a backstop. It's some insurance saying, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Because you seem like you don't, right? If you do, yeah, hit yes, and then everything goes away, right? If you hit yes, that goes away and that goes away. Let me undo that. Hopefully it comes back. Thank you. Right? Right? So I'm going to try to click that, delete, you hit no. Okay? So that's that hierarchy. And then if you delete your media on your hard drive, right? In this case, this is sitting, in my case, let me minimize, let me go. I'm going to show you where my media that I just imported into this project is actually sitting right here on my D drive. I didn't move it into my exercise folder. It's actually right here, right? So if I delete any one of these clips from here, okay, and this is what you want to be careful of. Let me kind of cut to the chase. Once you start working, especially on project 3, and this was a little different from project 2 because the only external media you brought in were your jump packs. You don't want to move your project file. You don't want to move your media because what happens is stuff will become unlinked, and this is what will happen. So let's just say this is damage control. Okay, best practice for now. Once you set up your project file and you bring your media in a specific location, leave everything there. Because if you move it, okay, first off, you never want to try to move anything while you're actually in your project, right? You always want to be out of your project, right? But if you choose that, hey, I need to like get out of my project, I'm going to save. I'm going to show you something, right? I just saved here. I'm going to go ahead and close this, okay? I'm going to stay in Premiere, right? But I closed my project. So now I'm going to go into, hang on, I'm going to go into, for example, that D drive. And I'm going to say, move one of those nature stills, which was the first one, right? Let's say I delete this by accident. Hang on, let me need that right now. Or let's say I move this entire folder, okay? I'm going to move it out of here, right? And I'm going to put it just somewhere else in D. Now, let's see if this, now Premiere has gotten smarter over the years, right? So it may actually figure this out. Okay, so you can see now that's not in the, hang on a second. That is a separate folder now with all those still images. And it's not in my P3. Where's my P3, right? It's not in there anymore. So let's see. Traditionally, this would cause a problem, but let's see what happens. Now I go back into my project. There is exercise 0613. I only closed it a minute ago. I open it up, and there you go. That's what I expect. Okay, so if you see something like this, that means you have imported something into your project. And this doesn't even mean it's in your sequence. It can even only just be in your project panel. You've imported something. And so those links were initially established, but now you've moved that somewhere else, that source data, right? That actual asset. And right now, Premiere can't connect to it. It's kind of like you said, hey, send me a letter, and you give them the address, but then you move, right? So it never gets to you. So you have a few options here. You can say offline all, right? You could say cancel. It won't even, well, if you do that, this is what happens. So again, this is why you don't want to do this. So now, and let me open up nature stills. It still shows the folder, but now let me blow up these icons a little bit. Okay, so this is damage control, media management. You see that it has like a big question mark, right? That means it's offline. And every reference that is connected to those master clips gives you this weird red offline information in like 9, 10 different languages, right? And if you actually hover on there, you can see it says offline. And if I go to it, I don't think I can even clear, I can even set the properties. It won't show me the properties. Now there's a way to fix this, okay? And I'll go ahead and do it now. I'm going to highlight all of these things. Okay. I could have done it in that initial screen, but now I've highlighted all of these nature stills. And I'm going to right click on them and I'm going to say link media. Right. So now I'm going to locate. And because it's not in here, I'm going to have to go find it. So you don't want to deal with this. Okay. I'm just showing you, if you see something like this, this is what happens. And so there it is. So now I should be able to select this folder, or actually, I think if I only select one, but I'm going to select all of them, if it lets me. Okay, it only lets me select one, select, and there it goes. It went ahead, and I think it defaulted to anything else that was in that same folder that was in this timeline. It reconnected it, see? But now it's not in the original folder. Everybody see that? Remember, I record these, so that might make your head spin, but this is something you want to be careful about moving media, okay? If you ever see that offline thing, okay, avoid that for now, okay? And if you have to, hopefully if for whatever reason you're running out of hard drive space, get an external if you can, or a thumb drive, unload other stuff so you can get through this project. Then once you're done, you can move it and I could help you reconnect all that stuff, all right? But that's a good little damage control, stress relief, stress reduction, okay? Little media management, project management, okay? All right. Very good. So that was a good thing to do. So now here, let's do this. Let's do a quick audio exercise. All right, let's go ahead, save this. Let's go ahead and close this sequence. Let's create a new sequence. And you know what? Don't even worry about the sequence. Just open up your basic music edit and grab this one, Cruising HD, which was our first clip. And actually, will it let me drop it in? There it is. Okay. And then the second clip, TikTok, right? Well, you know this one, right? That's a little loud, so let's turn that down. Okay, I'm going to give you some basic audio, and we can cover some more of this on whatchamacallit, Tuesday. This is a different song, right? So we're going to bring that in. Now I'm just going to grab it here. So now, most times, let's say you want to transition. First off, let's do, and we kind of got a basic lesson on one. Your level, okay? Your audio level, which is not the same as your volume, right? You can always adjust your volume, but the volume does not adjust your actual level that exists in your timeline. So right now I'm going to push up because we're not going to deal with video. So I'm going to make these audio tracks a little taller, a little bigger, right? Give me a little more real estate. Okay, right? We'll play this. So you can see that it's right in that. You got a little yellow, a little red, not quite red, which is a good level. This is how we adjust it. There's the it's I wish it didn't say volume level, but it's actually the audio level. And so this is in the video tracks, this is like an opacity band, but this is actually volume. So you can click, you can push this up, you can lower it, right? So let's say you push it up like 4 dB, right? Decibel. If you see that, that's overmodulated. That's too much red. And it's peaking on, it's pushing at the top of the meters. Right? So you can put it back down to 0, or if you want to drop it a little bit, you can. Right? You can see the next one is pretty clean. You see like a frame or two of red, but it's not really distorted because this is, of course, professionally recorded, right? According to what they call, I forget the actual standard, CDA or whatever it's called, standards in the recording industry. So that's all very professionally done. So you should be able to bring anything like that into your project, and you shouldn't have to mess with it too much. But now let's say we know that we can shorten audio, right? We've seen trimming and all that stuff. But what if you want to transition from one song to another? Okay, that's where you get into using your multiple tracks, right? So here, let's say you wanted to end this song or get out of this song earlier, and you wanted to transition into this song, right? So the better thing is to create sort of like a little bit of an overlap, right? And again, you have to pick where you want to get out. So let's say maybe right there, hanging out the bar, and then I want to fade that out, and I want to bring up the second song, right? So right now, if I leave that up, the first song is going to override the first one, but I can still hear the second song, right? So it's different than video, right? If I have video, it covers up the bottom layer unless I have a alpha channel or I drop that opacity. Here, it's going to give me a composite, and it's going to sound terrible. So I want to transition from one to the other. There's a quick way to do it, and you could go ahead and just push that right up and line it up. Give it a second. It needs to draw that audio data, right? There it is. And you could go into effects, and you could go into audio transitions, and you could grab crossfade and bring that in and put it right here. But now I don't have, this one is, hang on, I'm going to have to create a little bit of remember how it transitions when we did jump backs? I'm going to have to trim this back a little bit, right? By maybe about 15 seconds, right? And ripple that back in. And now I can do a constant power transition. And let me magnify that. Okay, this is going to be how long? This is about a second. So I could do, this is like a very basic transitioning from one song to the other. So that was pretty quick. Right? So it's a little quick, right? But the better way is to do this. Right? I'm going to undo all that. Right? Bring that, drop it down, and create like a good, about a good 1 second, actually longer than 1 second. We're going to make about like maybe about a 7-second overlap, maybe like a 5-second overlap. Okay. You see the negative. So I create that, and then just like you keyframe in the effects control, you can keyframe right here in the timeline. Okay. And we're going to do a lot of this next Thursday on Project 4. So this is a good practice. So you're going to bring your mouse to this little line. You're going to hold down Control or Command, and you're going to get the white arrow with a little plus. Click, and you add a little keyframe. Okay. Then you come to the end of that track. Hold down Control, right? Point your mouse. So the tip of the mouse is on that line. Hit Control, Command, click, you add a keyframe. Let go of Control or Command, and you can grab that keyframe, click on it, and drag it down. You create this little ramp, right? While that audio is selected, you can still go up here in audio in the effect controls and open up that volume, and you can see those keyframes at the very end. And you can snap to them, and you can still fine tune them if you want to, right? And so as this is coming down, you do the exact opposite on the other clip. You go where that's faded out all the way, add a keyframe here, go to the front, click and drag it down. So now you've made manual crossfade, but you have more control of it here because you don't have to make it perfectly uniform. You could start this earlier, you could start this later, you could add additional keyframes here to really make this sort of like custom, right? I'm gonna undo those for a minute. And so here's the crossfade.
Well, ain't got no money, no fancy car, ain't got no excuses, babe.
So you can hear that that's a much smoother transition. You know, if any of you have DJ'd, you probably know how to do this already, at least with, you know, with your techniques, or if people, I don't know if people even still spin vinyl. I guess they do, right? Because vinyl's cool. I still have all my vinyl. Anyway, so that's a crossfade. Okay, so that's a very basic way to, hey, I want to use two songs, you know, and I want to get out of one song earlier and then get into the next song, and then, you know, okay, well here I'm pushing like 5.5 minutes. I need to be out somewhere around here, right? Say 3:15 because I want to maybe have about 15 seconds of credits, right? And so you could trim that back, and then you could add an audio dissolve, or you could add a crossfade and fade that out. Okay. I'll cover a little bit more of that Monday. So that's a basic audio. Again,
Wavelength
be very careful with your level.
and big
Okay? And you don't want to have something like this. So if you do something like this, you don't want to have that maybe not come up all the way, and then as you go through the song, it gets louder. As you see right here, this is at like 7 dB. And then as you go through here, say, for example, you had a second keyframe here, and you push that up, you don't want to have that getting louder. See, you can see here, you're at -6.5, right?
all the people of the
So you want to have a consistent level, all right? So be careful with that, all right? Now I'm going to show you, oh, and I meant to send you a script, but you know what? We can just do it right here. So now we're going to do what's called a radio edit. So again, this, you don't have to try this, but if you want, you can. This is a little bit more sophisticated. All right, so let's go ahead back in, go past this, and bring in that TikTok song again. Just drag it in, you know, beyond that previous one, right? Just bring it over here. Actually, let's delete these for a minute. Let's just get rid of that. And then bring this back to the very beginning, ripple that. So that the very beginning of this song should be at the very beginning of the timeline. So what we're going to do on this edit, which is what radio stations used to do way back in the day when they would shorten songs so they could fit more songs within a block and sell more advertising. So if you had the album, like an old guy like me, and you'd be like, and you'd hear, you know, Stairway to Heaven on the radio, and they'd be like, they would like skip a couple of stanzas, and then all of a sudden, this one part would happen sooner where you're like, that doesn't happen on the album, because they would lift it and cut it back together. So we're going to do that with this song. We're going to cut out almost a minute of it and splice it back together, and you're not even going to be able to tell the difference. Okay? Because we're taking advantage of those beats, the down and up beats, and you're matching part of that music. because popular music tends to be repetitive, right? So you can take advantage of that when you're editing. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to play this for a minute.
One night while sleeping in my bed, I had a beautiful dream that all the people of the world got together on the same wavelength and began helping one another. Now in this dream, universal love was the thing of the day, peace and understanding, and it happened this way. The thick
Okay, so we're going into this next section. I'm going to fast forward this a little bit.
in the cities were all beautiful places, and the walls came tumbling down. People of the world all had it together for the boys and the girls and the children of the world. Look forward to a future. Remember, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, people. Time's ticking away. Remember that tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, people. Time's ticking away. I had a vision of blue.
Okay, so typical structure for a lot of music, right? You got some stanzas, then you have a chorus, and then you go back into another stanza, you know, like a paragraph, and it keeps building and telling the story, right? So we're gonna like cut a huge chunk of that. We're gonna take advantage of one of those breaks right there in that chorus, and then pick it up later at a later chorus in the song, butt it together, and it's gonna sound perfectly smooth. Seamless, all right? So we're going to use time code, and I've done this edit, so I already know the edit. You're just going to follow me so you can hear it, okay? All right, and this will be the last thing we do, and then we'll wrap up with a couple of things here. All right, so the chorus comes in right in here.
All had it together for the boys and the girls.
Right up in here.
Of the world, look forward to a future. Remember, tick tock, tick.
Right? So right before they go tick tock, you hear this dot da da da, like a little small, what we call a fill with the drums, like da 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 da, and then it comes in with the tick tock. We're going to cut it right there, and then we'll pick it up later, way later in the song when they say tick tock, but it's also going to come out of that same little drum fill, which they repeat later, and then we extract that center part, right? So that first edit is going to be at 122.10. So if you want, you could adjust your playhead. Again, this only works if your music is right butted up at the very beginning of the timeline, because this time code relies on that. Okay, so if you want, you could also click right here and type in 122.10, right? And remember, our time code counts from right to left. So this is going to be 1 minute, 22 seconds and 10 frames, right? Hit enter. Your playhead goes right to that spot. If you want to magnify that little section, you can also take advantage of the audio waveform data. And you can see this is where the little drums go, right? You can kind of scrub through that. You can see that right here. They say tick-tock, right? See, that's the little drum part. And they go to tick-tock. So we're going to go 122.10. Hit use a razor blade. Remember the razor blade? Go ahead and just hit C on your keyboard. You get the razor blade, cut right on the playhead, and there you go. Now don't trim or anything, because we're going to just lift that out. Now go hit V, so your selection tool goes back to the selection tool, right? And now way later in the song, right around 2 something, somewhere in here, you're going to hear that same pattern again, right? So let's play right around like 2:16, 2:15, okay? They're coming out of the stanza.
Children of the world, look forward future, remember.
You hear this, you hear that same pattern, right? Dot, 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 tick, tock, right?
Remember.
See, there it is, right? So you find a repetition that you can take advantage of. Right there, there's the edit. Let's call it 221-21. Okay. Right, so I'm using demagnification, magnifying. If you're like way up here, if you can't find that, just literally punch that in, since I already told you, 221-21. 221-21, boom. Magnify, you can see that's right on that little dip. Okay. Hit your C, get your blade, click, and then if you want, sometimes I just play right from that point to sound like it, to sound like the right place. Yep, they're saying TikTok. Okay, so now let's convert our razor blade, hit V so you get your selection tool, demagnify this little middle section that we've cut. This is the part we're going to lift. Okay, we're not going to delete it. Demagnify, grab it and just kind of push it off to the right. Now in here, we're gonna be gutsy and ripple delete. We're not going to overlap it or anything. We're just going to do a straight edit, and it should be pretty smooth. If we have to, we can overlap it a little bit. But so now we're going to back up a little bit here. There's the edit, right? Go back about 10 seconds, let it play.
And the girls and the children of the world look forward to a future, remember. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, beat.
Did anybody hear the edit? Could you tell there was an edit there? Yes, no? Did anybody worked with audio and done any audio editing? No, yes. Everybody's still alive. We're almost done, folks. Trust me.
Yep.
Okay. So that's an edit. That's like a real audio edit where, like, say okay, I need to cut out part of this song. I just trimmed a minute out of this thing. Let's look at the piece we cut out. Right? We can kind of even click on that, and you can hover on it. Let's see what it says. It says we're at, sometimes it takes a second. That was 59. You can see the duration in that little white window. It's 59 seconds. Even if I hit properties, it should tell me total duration. No, it's showing me the duration of the whole song. It still doesn't. But anyway, that's 59 seconds right there. There you go. Right? And so that's a seamless edit. So whenever you do something like that, here's what you do. When you're playing it back and you're checking it and you want to confirm if it's clean, close your eyes. Don't look at it, because when you close your eyes, your ears become even more sensitive. And the editor should have the highest discretion of what they do. All right. If you hear something that needs to be cleaned up, you need to clean it up. Even if somebody else doesn't hear it, that's not the bar you're trying to hit. You need to be the person with the highest discretion, because it's your work. And somebody else will hear it and say, hey, that was not really clean. And then, don't try to get away with it. So anyway, that's an audio edit. There was still some more I wanted to cover, but I think we got to the real, some of the critical stuff. I did want to get into a little bit more of the essential graphics. So, but here's what I would want you to do. And those are these things over here that we've been using, but we haven't gotten into the templates, right? So now we're going to be using some of these templates. For example, something like this. Let me see if I can even drag this in. Oh, that's audio. Oh, this is no video layers. There we go. Let me bring it in here for a minute. This might take a second to load. Okay, let me magnify that. Okay. Okay, let me open this up. Okay, so again, I'm just giving you a super quick view of this. So these are what these templates are. They're pre-generated, kind of like the jump backs, but you can manipulate these. So for example, now this is not rendered, so it's really playing rough, but you can see that this has some very cool video effects, right? And it says futuristic light beam title, right? The cool thing is you could go right in there and you could change the wording on this, right? Say, you know, my project 3, right? I don't know if it's going to work because I did not. Okay, there it is. Now it's not rendered, but this is the basic idea with these. So I've got these on Blackboard. Let's go back to Blackboard. Where are we? There we are. And I think these are in the Project 3 tutorials. Yeah, Essential Graphics tutorials. Oh, this is the drawing that I did last week. Let's go into Project 3 tutorials. Where I thought I had them in here. I will do a quick tutorial on this and put it out, if not tomorrow, Saturday, but we're going to cover more of this on Tuesday since we're going to have an extension. You won't have to turn in Project 3 until next Thursday, right? But these can be very handy for even just like an opening cool title. They also have transitions that you can use that you don't have to create, like very cool. Let me show you a couple real quick. Hang on, I've got them right here. Okay. Pretty sure I saved them in my thing here. And these are already rendered, so we don't have to wait for them. Summer 2024. Oh, let me show you. There's a couple things I got to show you because if you do grab your audio, okay, if you use that Real Player audio, it's going to help you download stuff. But if you're downloading something from YouTube, okay, it's going to bring it in with your video, right? So if you download something that's got music there, hang on, let me import something here real quick. Just bear with me. This is important stuff because I don't want you to get caught up and you're going to be confused. All right, so I'm going to bring in a typical example of something you might download from YouTube, like a music video, right? So here's a music video, right? Okay, so nothing like a little sound garden. All right, so as you can see, this is a full video. It's got the video and the audio connected, but you don't want the video. So all you got to do is right click and go to unlink. And we're going to do a bunch of this next Thursday. So click on that, and all of a sudden, those two layers are independent. Click on the video, delete, and you got your music. Okay? Because Real Network will, the Real Player will bring it in all together. Was I actually sharing that? Did everybody see that? Let me do that again. Okay? I don't think I showed you that. Okay. Right? So here's a music video. Right? Right click, unlink. Right? Now or independently. You can move them independently. Click on the video, delete it, and you got your music. Okay? Also, low-tech advice. If you're having a hard time downloading something or finding something digitally, here's the cheap way, the low-tech way to do it. Play it on your computer or whatever device. Use your phone. Get your record function and just record it. You might have to like play with the distance of the phone and the level on your computer. Do it a couple times. Do a test. Bring it in, see what sounds. Record it, and then just email it to yourself and download. Low tech. It works. Okay. So that's really it.